You ever wonder why we sometimes just go with the flow, even when our gut is screaming at us to do the opposite? Well, there's a name for that. It's called conformity, and it's this incredibly powerful, often invisible force that shapes so much of our lives. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the psychology of why we follow the crowd.
Come on, be honest. Think about that moment. Maybe you were in a work meeting or just hanging out with friends, and you found yourself nodding along, while inside your brain was going, nope, no way, I don't agree with this at all. We've all been there. And today, we're going to figure out exactly why that happens.
All right, so to really get a grip on conformity, we first need to zoom out a little bit. It all starts in the really fascinating world of social psychology. So, social psychology is our foundation here. It's the scientific study of how other people, and it doesn't matter if they're right there in the room with you or just an audience you're imagining in your head, can totally change what you think, how you feel, and what you do. In a nutshell, it's the science of social influence. And tucked inside that huge field is our topic for today: conformity. At its very core, it's just our tendency to tweak our own thoughts or behaviors so they line up with the people around us. It's not about being forced, right? It's that subtle and sometimes, not so subtle pressure to just fall in line. And conformity is a little more complex than you might think. It's not just one thing. Sometimes it's totally conscious, like when you pretend to laugh at a joke you didn't get. Other times it's completely unconscious, like when you start picking up the accent of your new friends. And it can run deep, not just changing how you act, but what you actually believe. But this is where it gets really interesting, because it turns out there's more than one way to conform. Psychologists have actually pinpointed 3 different types, and each one is driven by a completely different motivation. Okay, let's break these down. First up, you've got compliance. This is the shallow end of the pool. You go along with the group on the outside, but on the inside, you haven't changed your mind at all. You're just doing it to avoid a fight. Then we go a step deeper with identification. This is when you conform because you really admire a group and you want to be like them. Think about adopting the fashion or the slang of a group you look up to. And finally, the deepest level, that's internalization. This is the real deal. It's when you actually adopt the group's beliefs as your very own. It's a genuine, lasting change. Okay, so we know what it is and the different ways it happens. But that leaves the biggest question, right? Why? Why do we do it? What makes that pull so incredibly strong? Well, it really all boils down to 2 very powerful, very human desires. And here they are: normative influence and informational influence. The easiest way to think about it is this: it's our desire to be liked versus our desire to be right. Normative influence is all about social acceptance. We are social creatures. We want to fit in, and we're scared of being rejected or made fun of. But informational influence is totally different. That's about knowledge. When we're in a confusing or new situation, we look at what other people are doing and assume they know something we don't. We conform because we think they have the right answer. I know this might all sound a little abstract, but back in 1951, a psychologist named Solomon Asch came up with this brilliant and now super famous experiment that showed just how powerful this pressure can be. The setup was so simple, it was genius. Okay, so picture this. You walk into a room and you're shown a card with a few lines on it. Your task is super easy. Just say which of the 3 lines on the right is the same length as the line on the left. The answer is obvious, right? But here's the catch. Everyone else in the room, they're all actors. And one by one, they start giving an answer that is clearly 100% wrong. So, what do you do when it's finally your turn to speak? The results were just staggering. Get this, a whopping 37% of the time, the real participants caved and gave the same wrong answer as the rest of the group. Think about that. That's almost 4 out of every 10 times that people publicly denied what they were seeing with their own 2 eyes, all because of social pressure. So the huge takeaway from Asch's work is that the pressure to fit in can be so strong it literally makes us doubt our own senses. It's a perfect example of normative social influence. But here's what's really fascinating. In follow-up studies, Asch found that if just one other person in the group gave the correct answer, conformity plummeted. Just having a single ally was enough to break the spell. Now, after hearing about an experiment like that, it's really easy to paint conformity with a negative brush. But hold on, it's not all bad. In fact, it's a huge part of how our societies even function. The trick is to see it for what it is, a double-edged sword with some real pros and some real cons. On the plus side, conformity is kind of like the glue that holds us all together. It creates social harmony, it helps us learn the unwritten rules of our culture, and it allows us to coordinate with each other. I mean, think about something as simple as stopping at a red light. That's conformity, and it keeps us safe. But of course, there's that other side of the sword. It can crush individual creativity, lead to terrible decisions through groupthink, and as we just saw, it can make good people act against their own best judgment.
So, we'll leave you with this thought. Just understanding the psychology behind conformity doesn't make you immune to it, but what it does do is give you something incredibly powerful, a choice. The next time you feel that pull, that urge to just go along with the group, you can now hit pause and ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is it because I really agree? Or am I just trying to be liked or assuming they know better? Recognizing you have that choice is the first step. And honestly, that can make all the difference.